Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Hello.
Kia ora, Faye.
Kia ora, Faye.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing great.
Yeah. Thanks for meeting us at such a obscene time in the States.
Yes. I mean, I'm a college student, so, like, the sleep schedule is extremely messed up anyways.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know how many people will get... it's 5 p.m. here in New Zealand, but expecting more people to be showing up later on. Oh, wait, it's Eldon. Hello, Eldon.
Hey, Eldon.
Hi, Ellen.
Hey.
Are we going to wait until a few people show up before we introduce Faye?
No, we'll introduce Faye.
Yeah.
So, as everyone knows us, it's Andrew and Ocean from Popula, but we're joined here today by Faye of Faye Sterling fame. Also very famous for supportive shifts, and that's why we've asked Faye to join us today and to talk about supportive undergarments. So if you'd like to talk a little bit about yourself, that would be fantastic. No pressure.
Man, I mean, I'm a YouTuber who doesn't like talking about themselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, my thing on the internet is historical undergarments, especially supportive ones, and how they have sort of evolved throughout the years. It's also turned into a joke with friends because I am seemingly summoned by them.
Yes.
But beyond that, I am a student of linguistics at university, and fun times on my channel with lots of nerds. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that about your channel, Faye. We would particularly appreciate your sharing of medieval literature with ourselves and other people who are interested in Popula Urbanum. And of course, the association that we all have of you with supportive undergarments.
Yeah, and definitely your knowledge in supportive undergarments and how they're constructed and how they can help people, I guess, develop the right silhouette for the medieval period. It's that's really important. So
yeah,
I guess a little bit of background on this chat. It's very informal. I actually hit you up about this yesterday evening, your time, midnight almost, my time, evening, where I was like, oh, you know what we should do? We should talk about supportive shifts, and, well, Paltoks especially. Just let's have a video. Let's do it now. And you said, why not? So let's do it. So I guess a bit of context for people who are watching. The reason why we're talking about Paltoks is that in our Discord, if you're not a member of the Discord, you should join.
Yeah.
You should be.
You should
That's
be.
how you join the medieval mafia.
Yeah. The topic of Paltoks came up because one of our members in the Discord and also fellow YouTuber Eldon of Company of the Staple started talking about Paltoks, and a bit of a discussion formed there about what were these garments, what was their purpose, how did medieval masculine shapes in the late 14th century achieve that sort of waspish waist with that big chest. And this is something that Ocean and I were really kind of struggling to come to a conclusion with, especially after Ocean worked on that masculine impression of the musician with the pigeon breast, which you weren't really able to achieve by padding out the chest of the coat-hardy, were you?
That's right. I mean, I did a fitted coat which was made out of coating fabric, and then I partially lined that with I think it was a linen, and that had very limited success in terms of creating any kind of support or shaping. And I was thinking, you know, people who don't have that kind of musculature that's, you know, that really pronounced musculature that you think of as having that sort of pigeon chested, and let's face it, that is not really a typical shape for the human body.
I had
how do you get that? Sorry?
When I was working on a masculine 14th century impression, not for me, but for a former friend of mine, we had a very similar issue.
Yeah.
Except I was foolish and did not line the pourpoint.
Yeah.
So there was absolutely no waist reduction, which of course made it very hard to get that later 14th century wasp waist.
Yeah.
And it was more towards the earlier 14th century with what I have picked up from Ian Laspina calling the weasel waist.
Cool.
Yeah, yeah, the weasel waist, right?
I like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another point of conversation that I was coming to this with was the pointing of hose in the later part of the 14th century and the 15th century, and a bit of a discussion about breech girdles.
Yeah.
But we see the underwear getting smaller and tighter and hose getting longer.
Yeah. And
how were the hose getting pointed? Was there some type of garment and a supportive garment being used?
Yeah.
And then we came across sort of us and Eldon, who I see in the chat, so your name's getting thrown around, and you probably should have been here, but whatever. Calling you out.
We maybe should have invited.
Yeah. He wasn't here. He didn't get off the list.
Yeah, right. But we came across Fashion in the Age of the Black Prince. And so I'm just going to read some excerpts from that that really, I think, start talking about this garment called a paltok, which I think is the answer to all of these questions. The supportive garment, which is shaping the body, but also is for pointing hose. So
all through this book is Stella Mary Newton, for those who are interested.
Yeah. So I've got some photocopies, so I'm not reading, and not going to but I'll read. Just stop rambling. So excerpts here are John of Reading, whose Chronica is regarded as having been written between 1366 and 1369, described what he saw as innovation in 1365, and thought that it was not surprising that, in view of such insane frivolity, the plague, which the English called the pox, had returned. Hoods, he declared, were so minute and buttoned so tightly round the neck, they could hardly be... Oh, someone's been reading my papers out of order. Oh. I thought I was seamless here, everybody.
That's me.
So, pulled onto the head, their liripipes were as thin as string, hanging down over their paltoks, and other such extremely short closed woolen garments, sewn all over. Their very long hose tied up to them so tightly are called harlots, or gradelings, or laurels, because their wearers showed lunacy of their characters. In fact, they were tied so tightly to their hose they could not kneel to God. Their shoes having long beaks, and they wear long knives hanging from their belts between their legs. So these are fashions that we see around that 1360 mark. I love it. Yeah, right.
I love people complaining about contemporary fashions. It's the best.
It is. It's so good. It's just like, oh no, they're wearing tight clothes. What are they doing? And again, we see more complaints. Is that Pounce? Pounce just getting into trouble.
Just super
Can't
cute.
even blame it that.
Hey, Pounce.
That was just it falling off of the tripod.
Oh.
Yeah, so we see again in another book called The Eulogium, written in 1362. An excerpt from that talks about different garments, which I won't go into, but more complaints is they wear a silk garment commonly called a paltok Their hose are parti-coloured or striped and tied up to these paltoks of theirs, which have been nicknamed harlots because they barely cover their loins. And then there's more complaining, people complaining. The Pope tried to forbid short suits. And then as far as the fashion itself was concerned, the padding over the belly, so earlier period they padded the belly to get like this sort of rectangular shape, as characterized of the early 1350s, had not remained in favour for long, and before 1360 a new design for the human body had emerged. This was belt low on a level with the crotch, where, that is to say, it has been in the 1340s, but gave the torso a completely new emphasis by abandoning the appearance of a rectangle, instead by moulding the tunic to the natural waist, which was induced to look narrower still by the addition of padding not over the belly, but round the chest. This padding, at first moderate, was increased during the 1360s until the torso looked almost spherical around the chest. In the middle of the decade, skirts began to widen until, at varying moments according to the centre of fashion in which the change occurred, they achieved a stiff bell shape. So we know that sort of round with the big skirt. Until this happened, however, they had remained tight and very short so that the chroniclers could be excused for attacking them. As the skirts began to extend in the middle of the 1360s, sleeves, still very tight over the forearm, were extended a little at the wrist to form small bells which covered the knuckles. But the most arresting change was in the shape of the upper sleeves, which began to be expanded above the elbow, with the result that, at a superficial glance, some resemblance might be discovered between the tunics of the late 1360s and those of the middle 1330s. She goes on to discuss some of the changes, but aren't really important to this discussion. It was pointed out in an earlier chapter at the beginning of the 1340s, the King of England was wearing suits that included a closed or an open supertunic, and perhaps both, an undertunic, and for certain circumstances an accoton, a doublet, or an occasional court pie. Usually for hunting, sometimes a corset, but neither a gown nor a paltok. Both John of Reading and an author of the Eulogium found these two garments new and objectionable in the middle of the 1360s. Not long before, an account had been drawn up by John Newbery, at the time clerk of the Great Wardrobe, which recorded the making of a paltok and a hood of russet longcloth to the king to wear at Christmas, and almost immediately afterwards a long gown. Garments were then delivered to him by the hand of William Harvey, as were two more paltoks, one of them of black cloth, the gift of the king's chamberlain, John Chandos. The paltoks are described as being padded and from materials issued for their making. It seems they must have been made of cloth stuck with cotton wool and lined with the linen of Reims. It can also be estimated from the quality of silk thread that was used in making them. They were either quilted or closely sewn in some other way, and this again confirms John of Reading's statement that paltoks and other very short garments were sewn all over. He also said they had no front opening. In the Eulogium, paltoks are described as being made of silk. And there's a few other things here. While gowns were worn by members of either sex, paltoks were naturally worn only by men. As chroniclers explained, they were fitted with laces for which long masculine hose were attached to them. The Great Wardrobe account of 1363 to 64 explains the amazing success of the two new garments, that being gowns and paltoks, introduced the first time less than 2 years previously, for by this time gowns and paltoks were no longer reserved for the royal family and members of the nobility, but paltoks were already being issued to squires and gowns to falconers, the latter for wearing in wintertime. And one last thing, as for paltoks, though different in detail, it must be related to both the accoton and the pourpoint, or it may indeed have been identical to the pourpoint, which, as the name suggests, was also equipped with eyelet holes and laces with metal points to thread through them in order to not only keep the hose up, but to keep itself down. So the hose and the pourpoint are one garment, right? With the, well, not one garment, but tying it to itself. Froissart refers in 1358 to the bourgeois of Tournai and other cities equipped with handsome saddles, swords, jakes, and jupons, the last two of which appears in other manuscripts of the same passage as gipons and pourpoints. So that's just to kind of set when the fashion was appearing and kind of what we know from the wardrobe accounts of the time.
Yes. And I definitely see the comparison with the pourpoint, which we have the perfect example with the pourpoint of Charles de Blois, where we see the eyelets for securing the hose to, and very similar construction to how it was described in the account books for the Paltok.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
I went looking for some images of the Charles de Blois pourpoint, but I came up empty today. It was quite difficult to find images online, detailed images online of the lacing holes and such of that garment, unfortunately. So
Eldon is providing a comment in the chat. With the idea of pourpoints being named for having points laced through has been discredited.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the origin of that word, we did have a discussion about that, didn't we?
The word jupon.
The origin of the word pourpoint.
1 point. Yeah.
Okay.
We had a discussion about the origin of the word jupon.
I was referring to a discussion we had about the origin of the word pourpoint.
Oh, yeah.
I just can't remember what we came up with.
Eldon.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so Eldon's saying pourpoint equals stitched all over.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eldon.
Yeah. And the word jupon or to means is quilting.
Yeah.
And in France, the Juponniers Guild were the guild in which quilted garments. So and that's where we get the word gipon or jupon. Was the guild in which quilted garments.
Yeah. And also the origin of the word accoton, which you were reading in the book about cotton. What's the name?
So it's of cotton.
Yeah.
Of cotton.
Of cotton.
Yeah.
Cotton. So just a little bit of rough etymology.
Rough etymology. I feel seen.
Very rough etymology. It's okay. Yeah. We can write entire papers on the thing. Rough etymology works for our purposes.
Yeah.
So I guess the question here really is one, what are we really thinking about when it comes to the jupon? It's a quilted garment that's been paltok. Jeez, we're using all these words.
They're almost interchangeable, I think. It does get confusing.
But the paltok is this garment that seems to have been established in the 1360s. It's this tight garment and it's a shaping garment. It's quilted, so we've established that, and we're tying our hose to it. I've got some images that I'm more than happy to share, and we'll have a bit of a look at it and we'll talk about them. Yeah. And then I guess we'll talk about like how we would think about that being made, maybe. This is like everyone. This is really on the fly, okay?
It is, and of course I can always go on my tangents about how things all connect with the clothings of later periods, because of course I also do.
That is not the image that we want.
We have very similar things.
Are we going to go to the web page or to the
No, we'll go.
files?
We'll go. Oh, maybe we will go to the web page.
No, maybe the folder that we made for Paltoks. Sorry, folks.
Just hold on, folks. Going to go to a web page. Some images.
So yeah, Faye, what were you saying just now?
I mean, I can always go on many tangents about how things all connect with.
Oh yeah.
Because I also do 16th century stuff. We have been doing similar projects, working with getting the same waist reduction and pigeon-breasted shape on our masculine members of the group.
Wow.
With similar construction methods, and the most recent one that our company commander Gus has made, which I didn't get any image permission, so we'll just talk, and is like linen interlining and an outer shell of wool.
Oh.
And it sucks in his waist, which, I mean, he already had a fairly small waist, I will give him that. And it creates this very pigeon-breasted look, especially with how the roost fleck and hems sort of pad it out a little bit further.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
oh
it works
wow.
out really well, and I will make note.
I didn't know that was because I don't really focus much on the 16th century, but I didn't know that was part of that silhouette. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It is, and it's something that just the whole waist fitting, the smaller waists being fashionable because it's associated with fitness and such. Fitness and youth, typically. And so it comes in and out of fashion all the time. Very cyclical. Although my favorite thing about it is because the hose are also pointed to it just as it was in the 14th century. It's kind of like a Renaissance onesie. Which I appreciate.
That's really great. I was thinking about it the Paltok the other day, and this may sound a little silly, but I kind of compared it to the modern, 20th century woman's girdle. I don't know if people are familiar with this garment, it's like an elasticated girdle, elasticated corset almost, it's like shapewear. But you would attach your stockings to it. It had little snaps on the, not little snaps, but little clips on the.
Professionalism here, everyone. Professionalism. Just a bit of professionalism.
So I was kind of thinking of the Paltok as the girdle as a 20th century woman's Paltok.
So we've got some images here of Paltoks. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm done.
So this first one we're going to bring up here. Supplied by the amazing Alden.
Thank you, Alden.
Thank you, Alden. So this one's from the Tacitum Sanitatis. And this, I think, is a prime example of what we're talking about, like trying to obtain this. Can you see the same image as us?
Anyone in chat, can chat? Oh.
I cannot.
Oh.
I'm gonna.
Do you want me to just dump it in the Discord for you?
If I can see it on the YouTube. Please.
I'll also dump it in the Discord for you. Will do.
What if we link Faye to the site in the if we dump the link in the Discord?
Professional.
Faye.
We did get some more from the chat, the live stream might be buffering for some.
Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
Oh, I can see the images though.
You can?
Cool.
Cool. All right.
What can we do about that then?
Okay, if you can see that image. Okay. So this image here is from the Tassinum sanitatis. We've got two chaps in quilted garments. And while I think it could be argued that... Oh, cool. Someone said that they don't regret it. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, we can see two chaps here. Definitely, it has been argued that these are jupons or acatons. But I would say that looking at the way that these constrict the waist, and they are stitched all over, that they are in their undergarments and have false sleeves as well. Much more importantly, that we are looking at a padded undergarment. I would feel comfortable making that assertion.
Yeah.
Yep. I would certainly suggest that that's what
Mine
that
as
could
well,
be.
especially. Yeah.
You know, this is what we're dealing with here.
I agree with that.
You know, we're dealing with shapewear. And if we just get our little mouse here, if everyone can see my mouse. Oh, people can't see the images yet. Bummer.
Thanks for letting us know.
Thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
Oh boy, image is frozen.
Oh.
Oh yeah, technology.
Oh, okay.
Technology.
What can we do?
Okay, so the best descriptor. Yeah, so essentially, I don't know what to do about that. Oh, image is finally shown. Woo!
Yes.
Future. Yeah, so we got two people. They're engaged in sporting activities. In fact, this is from the Tassinum sanitatis is talking about engage in sport, be active.
Good for your health.
Yeah. Good for your health.
Don't forget to wear your shapewear.
Yeah, wear your shapewear. Might even put... yeah, so because they're stripped down to their undergarments, I would feel comfortable saying that this is... we're dealing with shapewear. Definitely dealing with shapewear. And I guess from my perspective here, and I'll hand it over to the other two in a minute because I've been doing a lot of talking, is that because I'm coming this from an underwear perspective, right? Is that there's, because of the tightness and the shortness of the undergarments, and my experience with these types of undergarments which tend to have a drawstring, it's very difficult to have a way to point your hose.
Yeah.
Hence the Paltok.
Yeah. In the experience of course, I don't typically wear hose just because I prefer wearing a dress. But because I sew for a bunch of dudes, I do have their experiences to pull from and the struggles with getting their clothes to work, which drawstring braids, keeping hose up, has not worked. We typically ended up pointing to a belt around the waist and just hiding it under clothes because I didn't want to make a specialized garment. But it's clear that this works for them, so clearly it means we should experiment with it a little bit more. Yeah,
I'm in agreement. When I was doing that first masculine set of clothes for the musician impression, I just, like for myself, I really just, I didn't feel convinced about the way that I was suspending my hose. And also, there was the obvious problem of how am I shaping the chest to the fashionable shape? You know, like, I mean, I have breasts, so that kind of gave me an advantage in a way because it filled out the front of the garment in some places, but then there are other places like in the front of my shoulders, just here in the upper chest where that wasn't kind of filled out in the fashionable shape. And so yeah, there are a number of like that. Just having done that impression, constructed those garments, it really gave, you know, as these going through these processes always is, it was a really good learning experience for trying to figure out how these things are constructed. And yeah, like suspending the hose, yeah, I think the Paltoks probably the way to go, and I'm keen to construct one at my earliest convenience. Yeah. Have you had the opportunity to make one?
I just asked a question.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I need to, you know, grab a dude and just make him some things.
Yeah.
But Tara just asked a question, wondering what the difference between a gambeson, acumen, and double are.
Okay.
Typically, they're used in very similar contexts. We can consider them as fairly interchangeable terms because think about how we have things like a dress, a robe, kirtle. Technically, they're all the same thing. They're just used differently or in different contexts sometimes. Like, yeah.
I think, yeah, I agree.
That's a very wishy-washy linguistic explanation.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe for Paltok, there would be less, you'd be less inclined to use, say, a decorative fabric on the outside, like what people call a fashion fabric. Whereas perhaps on a pourpoint,
yes,
you would be more inclined to use a fashion fabric like on the Charles de Blois. Because it's now, like, you know, I feel like a Paltok is less of an outer garment. It's a supportive garment. It's usually worn under other garments. That would be probably my main point of difference for the Paltok. And also I'm seeing pictures of Paltoks that are often short-sleeved.
Yeah.
With pin-on sleeves. Like,
we've got an example.
And that would make sense.
Yeah.
Ooh, an example. I'll bring it up.
Yeah, we've got a couple. Let's have a look at some images. Yeah.
If the chat can let us know.
Coat off. I'm quite hot.
The chat can let us know when this comes up.
The Tasha example, and then it just makes sense logically. If you're wearing an undergarment, you would want to have interchangeable sleeves so that it, you know, goes better with your outfit. And it doesn't use as much fabric.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, sorry about the lag, everyone. This is peak internet time here.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry, yeah.
We've only got a little tiny hole to push all the internet through here in New Zealand, so
one cable.
Yeah.
We only got one.
Yeah.
Sunday night, one cable. Which is normally why I do interneting, like streaming and stuff, like 5 a.m. our time. So let me know in the chat when this image comes up, because there's a short sleeve garment here. There's a question here about, are they false sleeves or do they tighten around the elbow? I think there's evidence for both.
Yeah, why not both at the same time? I don't see why a false sleeve couldn't be quite structured. Does anyone else have a reason why it couldn't be a little bit structured?
I certainly don't have any.
I've also got some views about like the difference between a gambeson, an accaton, and an arming doublet. Besides our use of etymology and our need to label things which make sense to us, they had a sense of what garment was what, and definitely referred to them in a certain way. Like earlier in the stream, if you weren't here, Froissart mentions like jakes, which also calls a jack, which is a padded garment for defense. And there's also, he also mentions paltoks and guipons and jupons at the same time. So it's kind of like how we have dresses and skirts and
what about, pants? Like pants, culottes, trousers.
Yeah.
Jeans.
They're all the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all pretty similar, slightly different.
It's
Yeah.
why we
entertaining.
don't really need to stress the minutiae, especially because we don't have as much context as they would have had linguistically.
Yeah.
Because we only have so much that has survived.
I'm wearing a blazer, but you could also call it a coat, right? It's also a jacket. So it's like...
But not all jackets are blazers.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Cool. Second image showed up.
History blazers.
History blazers.
Yeah.
History blazers.
No.
So the next image showed up.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Golly.
Yeah, tailor's shop. This one's really interesting because at the back we can see a padded garment and it's short sleeved.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. We can tell this because other garments have I'm pointing into space.
Yeah.
Other garments have in this image that are draped over that rail have their sleeves hanging down.
Yeah.
For example, the bag sleeve on the red coat there.
I could talk about that just all day.
Yeah, I know.
But also, I think the interesting thing to see here is the chaps, they all have that large bulbous chest in their gowns.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Like the tailors.
You could assume that the tailor in the blue is probably wearing a paltok or something
And
similar.
the young chap as well.
He has a stitched sleeve.
Yeah.
And does the junior
the junior as well,
the apprentice have a
stitched sleeve?
A sleeve?
Yeah.
I assume it's an apprentice. Might be.
And the interesting thing is
journeyman.
his cuff
Yeah.
is a bell cuff coming slightly over the fingers, as was discussed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, well, just over there.
The bell sleeve.
The bell sleeve.
Yeah.
So that's...
And I do need to step away for just one moment. I will be right back.
Okay.
That's your step. So this is another... So, short sleeve.
Yeah.
So perhaps some of them have detachable sleeves.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to another image while we're waiting for that to load.
And did you want to talk about like the guilds and the juponnières,
Do I want to talk about the guild?
the effect that the guilds had on the creation of these garments?
Oh.
While you're waiting for the image to load.
Kind of put me on the spot. I don't know what to say now.
Well, I mean, who would have been making these particular garments? Would it have been the juponnières, or would it have been a different guild, do you think?
Well, I mean...
Care to have a stab?
I don't really know, because it really depends on, like... You could say it would be tailors.
Okay. Yeah, right.
But it depends on... This is where I start, like, wishy-washy things about guilds, because when we deal with the guilds, it depends on what city you're dealing with and who they are, and some cities may have a specific set of ordinances or a specific guild that does one thing.
Okay.
Like, for example, in Paris, we know there was the juponnières, and they only quilted garments. They were the only ones that were allowed to quilt garments and make quilted garments. But we have no evidence. Sorry.
Yeah, in contrast to that, in London, our documentation for the ordinances for pourpoints actually come from the London Armourers Guild.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
wow.
just covered that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So it's like, well, who is allowed to make these garments? And not all guilds were the same. Yeah.
So it varies from place to place.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That in itself is interesting. Yeah. Have we got our third image up yet, guys?
Hello, chat.
Hello, friends.
Third image is not showing up for me yet.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
All
All
right.
right. That's cool.
So we might wait. We might pull up a third image,
So this.
and then which I think is perhaps almost the smoking gun. And
Oh
then
boy.
well, it's definitely a smoking gun. And then we will definitely then start talking about the construction and the shape.
Oh, this person in chat, Taro, says, in concept they cover the same function. Would you folks agree with that? The different garments, like the akaton, paltok, jupon, etc.
An arming garment. Well,
Would you say some of them are arming garments or some of them are fashion garments, or?
Well, no, not all padded garments serve the same function.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, because Akita and gambesons are typically for military wear, while a pourpoint is also daily wear for pretty fancy wear.
Yeah.
And then jupon I consider sort of more of an umbrella term for all of it because of the quilted origin linguistically for it. And then, of course, we have the paltok, which all evidence of its references point to it being a supportive waist-reducing garment.
Yeah. And you've also got civilian outer garments, which we see like a pourpoint being worn as like a quilted pourpoint being worn as a civilian garment. You've also got, I would call them jupons, which are outer quilted garments worn over armor. And other people have other terms for them, but that's something you wear over your armor. One day I will make one for the channel. You'll see. And then you've also got jacks, which are another garment.
Yeah.
So each of these serve different functions. So you've got a quilted garment that's a body shape wear. You've got a quilted garment that you wear underneath your armor. You've got a quilted garment that you wear over top of your armor, and those two are military garments. And then you've got padded garments that you wear, which are in emulation of those military garments, and they are civilian garments.
Like a fashion garment.
Fashion garments.
Outerwear.
Like what's that Italian one that's in the 15th century with all the pleats? I can never remember. It's got that. Words. Giornia. Yeah.
Ah, yes. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Giornia. Yeah.
With my butchered late night Italian.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, we got the image. Also, here's the smoking gun.
Thanks,
so,
dude.
Thank you
Eldon.
so much.
So, folks.
Right. So we got. This is like a scene of the Fountain of Youth.
Frescoes of the Fountain of Youth, 1420.
Yeah.
15th century.
So we've got this person here putting on
This image was provided by Eldon, wasn't it?
Yes, it's Eldon.
Yep. Thank you, Eldon.
So this is a bit of a zoomed in look. We've got a chap here with undies with a drawstring.
Little undies.
Quite
small.
We've got this person.
Teeny tiny.
Not the smallest in the medieval period, but fairly brief.
They're putting on their garment here. We've seen briefer. They're putting on their undergarment here, And we know this is an undergarment because there's a chap behind them who's opening up their coat. We've got the fur there, and they've got the same style of garment.
Yeah.
Picking out.
Mm-hmm.
How do we know that sorry, Faye, after you.
So what were you going to say?
These undergarments also, the braids specifically, of course they have the drawstring, but because they're so low on the hips as well, if you put any sort of weight on them, they are going to fall down a whole lot easier. Which is why you don't want those to be the things holding up your trousers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Eldon's message in the chat.
Oh, Eldon. Causing chaos wherever he goes.
I'm just here for people to agree with me. Loving it.
You're welcome.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. You're right.
Okay.
Just examine the evidence.
Just use your logical mind.
Yeah. Using your logical mind.
So.
Putting on our brain hats.
Yeah, if you could post the images. If you could post images to links in the Discord server. Yeah, I don't know why. YouTube's deleting. Sorry about that.
I have a question. How do we know that the undergarment peeking out from underneath the fur-lined blue gown or coat is not a shirt, an undershirt?
I
can't see the image very well.
Well, okay. We don't know that, except where it has the same patterning.
Does it have a stitched
pattern? It has some type of pattern. I think it's floral or something.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, no, that works. Yep.
And we can, because
it
we've
could
got
be stitching.
Yeah, because we've also got a line here. I don't like to say this, but I feel it is safe to extrapolate that you've got a separate skirt from the chest to create that bell shape between the chest and the waist.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which, if we look...
And we see this
in... You can't really create that shape with a rectangle of fabric. It must be like an arc of fabric.
Really can't.
Yeah.
Unless you want to have bias on bias, which for a skirt you don't really want because it will make the hem a pain in the butt to deal with. Because you would have to hang it for a while.
Yeah.
Unless you did gores or something.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine how it would
and then we've got another image. I'm not too sure.
On.
I don't know if it's.
We're waiting for that one.
Don't know if it's loading. But I'm just going to leave it there, and we'll just talk. And essentially, it's of two people. And how do we know this is under? And I can talk to this really well because how do we know these are undergarments? Well, number one, they're taking off their gowns. Number two, it's two men being depicted taking off their robes to lay at the feet of Jesus entering into Jerusalem on Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's a biblical text. So we know that in the Bible, like these two rich men putting down their shirts so Jesus can enter into Jerusalem. So these are their undergarments. It's depicting undergarments. And they are clearly depicted as being stitched all over, and they have false sleeves.
Yep. This for me is the smoking gun.
This for
me is the smoking gun. This image.
And they got.
Faye, are you getting this yet?
No.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just like.
What are you talking about?
Any second now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
let us know when it shows up.
And also, they've got super long hose all the way up to their paltoks.
Yeah, they go right up to almost the hip joint. Really,
Yeah.
it looks as if they go right up to the hip.
Yeah.
So.
Well, if not the hip joint,
is
the
this the image
top of the
that we
leg.
used for the promo.
Used for the promo.
Yeah, that
I
one.
know what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah,
All right, there we go.
of course.
Finger guns.
Now I have context, which, yes, I do agree that with Ocean that this one is the smoking gun for me, because you can see all the structure that is also worked into it, which would help create the shaping. And it's really a beautiful both depiction of the garment, which shows how it was created, as well as just wonderful evidence pointing to this thing that we have in a bunch of textual evidence.
Yeah. It's loaded apparently, so that's even better.
That makes sense. I don't know.
Thanks, Taro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like there's our shapewear. There's your pigeon breast.
Yep.
There's your high neck as well,
Yep.
which we see definitely depicted in like the 1370s, 1380s as well. You'll see a high quilted neck on many garments. The pigeon shape, the bulbous chest, and that really tight waist, which, you know, as I'm getting on in my life and thickening around the waist, that's going to be good for me.
Now, how are we constructing these, folks?
Yeah.
Are we going to leave this discussion for another day, or after we've done
Power
some
on.
experimentation, or are we going to dive in?
I think we can. So, of course, we should experiment to see how it all works actually in practice. But I think we can already pull from the evidence we have for the creation of similar garments, like Akitans, like Jamisons, to sort of help us figure out what we're doing, which we also have the records from the English wardrobe, where we have the sendal, we have the silk, we have the cotton wool. And from there we can already, especially if you sew a bunch like Ocean and I do, you already have your basic idea of what you're working with. And from there it's getting the right pattern and figuring out the best way to apply what we know into a garment that does the right thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Perfect timing.
Oh, Pounce. Hi.
Perfect timing.
Bless.
So I envisage this garment definitely having grand assiette sleeves, or at least needing them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
To get the range of motion with the padding, I'd say I like the grand assiette sleeve with it.
Because it's tight and pulled to your waist, you need that space, I feel. Could be wrong.
In my face.
Oh.
I think maybe some examples. I think maybe I'd have to have another look at Sorry. After you, Faye.
Yeah. I mean, I know from what I know that I would prefer using the grand assiette sleeve, but we also have that third image of the two men taking off their shirts, where it seems to be actually your typical set-in S sleeve, which that clearly shows that didn't have to be grand assiette. I would experiment with it first to just sort of confirm that, but...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'd say I'd review the images. Yeah, because I think that... I don't know whether doing the grand assiette would actually provide you with that real pigeon breast. I'd have to... you might be able to, but I think that carrying the front panels right back to the armhole would potentially give you more scope to get that padded look. And if you bring your side seams, your side seams essentially, your side panels all the way up to, your arm, the bottom of your arm. Yeah. And make your armhole really small, or your arm side really small, then you do still get your range of movement, as you would know, as long as you structure it the correct way, without having to do the massive, Yeah.
Looking at
Of
the
the iguanas,
16th
yeah.
century equivalent of these garments, Ocean, you're absolutely right. That's what I'm looking at here on
Like-
this extent, which I will send to the Discord
Oh,
server,
right on.
and I will see if Andrew can pull that up.
Like a kirtle, yeah? I think I'd be constructing it
Yeah.
like a kirtle
And
sleeve.
It's the same accent that I sent to you guys in the straight voice
Oh,
context.
right on. Thank
And
you.
The second image has the close-up on the way that the sleeve is. That's very descriptive, I know.
No, that works,
The
that
way
works.
the sleeve is. It's very high up in the armpit,
Yeah.
and it's set in like your typical sleeve, and it's actually curved so that way you can still have the motion in your elbow.
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
Yep. Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. It sounds like a really good starting point for experimentation. What was that 15th century garment that Eldon posted in the Discord today? It has the straight center. It's a man's garment, padded garment of the 15th century. Has a straight center front and a curved side seam for the front panels. So it's curved, straight center front, and then the on the chest, the side seam curves like this, and then it comes into, it's nipped at the waist. The center front continues down straight, and then the skirt comes out like that. And I think, is there a waist seam? I don't recall. But anyway, I thought that was interesting that the side seam is curved and the center front is straight. That's a method that some people use for kirtles.
Yes, and it's practical too because it keeps the, your buttons from having the buttonholes and everything works from being on the bias. So it's quite logical and practical to have that all on the straight grain.
True.
And having the shaping in the sides, creates a little bit of ease.
Oh yeah, you mean for the arm? For the armhole? Like for the sleeve, sorry?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
cool. Well, what's that garment called? The falsetto?
The falsetto.
Falsetto of somebody. Pandolfo the Third?
The Malatesta falsetto, yeah.
Pandolfo the Third Malatesta. Yeah, sorry. Apologies for my rubbish citation. And thanks again to Eldon, and was that also Erkin in the Discord?
Yeah, Erkin sent us the quadrant of photos that has a couple more detailed shots, including the shot of the sleeves, which, oh my gosh, I love the sleeves on that.
Yeah.
I like how the sleeves are constructed.
Yeah, it's so good. So this is what year approximately? Was it like mid 15th or something? I don't recall. Anyway, it's maybe we can post it in the comments.
Yeah.
Some detail about that, or in the Discord. Yeah.
Oh, Eldon mentions that the Charles de Blois pourpoint is an extant Paltok, and I would agree with him.
Paltok?
Absolutely. Paltok.
Paltok or pourpoint?
Paltok.
Ooh.
Paltok, absolutely Paltok. It's got every single thing that a Paltok needs to have, especially places to point your hose.
Decorative fabric on the outside, though.
Did we see that?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Paltok.
Don't know.
It's a Paltok. Bite me. Bite me. It's Paltok. Paltok. So yeah, we've got an image here. And eventually it'll load. Man, I don't know what to do about this internet. It's just telling me.
Folks.
So sorry.
Yeah.
Hopefully though, you can rewatch it.
Sucked up into space.
Yeah. Hopefully the recorded version will be better.
Yeah. So this falsetto here. This image. This is what we're talking about. So the head of the sleeve is actually dropped from the side of the garment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a drop shoulder,
It's a drop shoulder.
which is interesting.
And I think if you look at the jupon of like the jupon for the Black Prince, that also has a dropped shoulder because it's got tiny little arms.
Yeah. I can't remember.
Let's see.
Are they drop shoulder, or is it just on the shoulder point?
I can't remember.
I can't recall.
But
It
also,
may be a drop shoulder.
Princess
Yeah.
is just sort of like your standard T-shirt.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for checking that.
So, I guess,
Well,
yeah.
yeah. That's cool.
What I do want to round up and say.
Yeah. So we've got some ideas about construction. That's cool.
Yeah.
There have been other people who have discussed like how the quilting was done. There was a whole documentary about it.
I mean, but those are documentaries are making
Yeah.
like
experimental
hackathons and jupons
Yeah.
and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
But these are good points about the patterns,
I
the
want-
potential shape.
I want to talk briefly about the reason for quilting.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because quilting isn't quilting lines where people think quilting, particularly in things like hackathons and things like that, is stuffing. Like you're not getting two pieces of fabric and stuffing between, right? What you're doing is you're yeah.
Yeah.
So multiple
Make a
layers,
sandwich.
you're making a sandwich, and you're quilting, and what that's doing is it's creating a stay. So what you're doing is you're tightening that fabric up, and you're basically creating with lines of quilting, you're creating a stay, and the way that if the images appeared, hopefully, of the two chaps laying down their garments, the way they show the pigeon the bulbous shape is to go around the shape of the body down
through the quilting.
Yeah, and that's creating a stay. Like, so later when they start using solid stays, like whalebone or willow or whatever else, when corseting gets really tight.
Or reed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's the same thing. It's
It's all in the shape
Yeah.
of the pattern pieces.
That's
And
right. So what?
That helps lend the shapings through the boning,
Yeah.
which, especially as corsetry developed in the way that we know it, we had specialized technology to set the boning and sort of help it ease itself into the shapes that we were trying to contort everything into a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm talking about corsetry. I barely understand it myself. It's just...
Yeah. No, I mean that's a good point. It's a good point.
But this seems to be like an ancestor of corsetry in a sense.
And the reason why they're using cotton in between is it's when it's laid down and stitched through, it creates a solid layer in which the fabric can't twist. So you've got the cotton in between. It's not about padding. It's really not about padding. I mean, yes, it's about padding because we want to create like a padded garment, but it's also about creating like a stay in which we can draw in certain parts of the body and push up. It both supports
It's
and
all
lifts.
about the structure.
Yeah.
Because that's why on my supportive petticoat for my Trossfrau, it's why I have pat stitching in like 2 areas of the entire garment. And that's focusing on beneath the bust so that it will support that weight and push everything upwards. Which is what we're seeing here with creating the stage towards the waist, so it moves the tissue up and down.
Yeah. So
to create the illusion of a smaller waist.
That's right. And it pulls the waist in. So when I would think when you're building this garment, if you want to go ahead and do one, you really need to think about the line in which that garment begins just above your hip bone. You're really putting in lots of tight lines downwards, flaring out. And then on your waist, on your chest, getting that lines coming down like this. And that'll actually and when you tie the front up, that'll bring this hourglass shape. Because not all of us have natural hourglass shapes.
No, some of us fake it extremely well.
All right. I think we've got some preliminary discussion points about Paltoks. Last thoughts.
Fastenings.
Or fastenings.
Just quickly whiz through.
My last thought could be, depending on how squishy you are, you can get more or less reduction in your waist. Similar to supportive shifts where, because a lot of the support is through reduction, the squishier you are, the more reduction you'll get, and also like the more pushed up everything will be.
Yes, very true.
Good point.
Very, very true.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So larger people who want a really big squish, don't be afraid. You too can have a waspish waist.
Yes. In the words of a friend of mine who just made her supportive shift, it feels like a big ol' hug.
Oh, nice.
So fastenings, I think, just moving on, conscious of time.
Yeah.
Fastenings, I think both buttons and lacing enclosure. Both, we see both.
Yeah,
but
we do see
mostly
both.
lacing.
Yeah.
Mostly lacing.
Yeah.
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 Lacing would work best because it's such an undergarment. You don't want a bunch of buttons underneath your other garments, which will possibly also have buttons. It doesn't create an attractive line in the silhouette.
Excellent question here.
Yep.
How thick you estimate the padding is? Same thickness all over or variable? I would say variable. I would say things like on forearms and arms, thinner.
Yeah.
Chest, you probably want thicker.
You want to get that fashionable look.
You want that,
I'd say a fair bit on the chest.
Yeah. And if you're also like how much compression you want to do on your gut, might question how thick you want that to be because you need some of the supportive stays in there.
Eldon has a potential answer to that question, which is really interesting. Do you want to read it?
That's a big question was cotton stitched into the pad, the body, or to create stiffness that can form hollows? And I think, I would agree that Eldon says, I think the opinion is shifting to the latter, which is creating stiffness that can form hollows. Absolutely. So you're not padding the body so much as like
creating a
shell, yeah.
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 I assume that's because people have been experimenting. I don't know though.
No, I feel that that's the case. With my cotton Ackerton, certain parts of my body, when I strap up my stomach, the chest looks fuller.
Yeah, right.
And it's like.
Is it like a movement of flesh upwards?
No, it's just that as my stomach comes in, my chest looks bigger, and that's all like, I think it's 8 mil thick padding.
It's not that thick.
It's not that thick. So
just by reducing the waist, the chest looks bigger.
Yeah, and it's not globose. I don't have a globose shape in there. Yeah.
Interesting. Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, people. Yeah. I think I mean, we do see buttons depicted. I would say if you're putting, just as a general probably guide, if you're wearing this garment underneath other things, maybe tend towards flatter buttons or lacing on the centre front.
Yeah.